I'd like to call on Metro Council member Laurie Adams, who is also Deputy Chairman of the Republican Party for the parish. She would come up and lead us in the invocation.
Precious Lord, thank you. Thank you, Father, that you have you've called us all here today. And Lord, thank you that you have given us this wonderful country. You've given us freedom, Lord. Thank you for the gifts that you have given us. And Father, we pray that your Spirit would be heavy on us, Lord. That you would see us through the next 24, 36 hours. That your blessing would be on the candidates that are running and the people who are voting, Lord. That your blessing would be on us here in this room today, and that all that we do would be pleasing to you. So, Father, I ask that you would bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies and help us commit our work, both the work of our feet, our hands, and the words that we would speak to your glory. And we pray all this in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to announce something before we do our pledge, and that is that we have a new member of the Republican Parish Executive Committee. He's here. Brandon Noel is Metro Councilman representing Zachary and part of Central as well. And there was a vacancy in Zachary on the party committee, and he has graciously agreed to accept that position. So I want to announce that first of all, and welcome Brandon with everybody.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if you got to see it, but former President Trump was doing a rally yesterday in Miami. Had an incredible turnout. Can you hear me? Yesterday, President Trump had a big rally in Miami, had a tremendous turnout, and in the midst of the rally, suddenly a giant rainstorm came. It was very powerful. The sky just burst open, and he continued to talk, and the people continued to stand, and it rained. And it was interesting because not a person left, and not an umbrella was used. They were just all there drenching, but it was very powerful, very moving. He said it's probably the best rally he ever did. It was done in the rain, so that was an amazing thing. So a lot of strength, iron will, as we go into tomorrow. A lot of people in this country are determined to take the country back from the socialists and to go back to traditional American values once again. So I'm optimistic about tomorrow. I think we're going to do extremely well. We're going to find out more, though, maybe from a more realistic perspective with Jeff Cruier. Jeff is on his way.
He's here.
He's here? Where? Is he here? Okay.
He needs a poster.
All right. So Jeff has finished his radio show in New Orleans. He got and just hopped on the interstate as soon as he could. I'm glad he's here. But we're going to hear from a couple of candidates, a couple of endorsed Republican candidates. And one person that plays such a vital role is the president of our school board right now, and that's David Tatnam. And David is running for re-election. He has a splendid career. He's been fighting things like critical race theory. He's for accountability. He's for discipline in the classrooms. But we have an unusual situation going on right now with millions of dollars being poured into this parish by out-of-state special interests who are trying to take control of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. So David is at the forefront of resisting that. And I hope that if you could just take a couple of minutes, David, bring us up to date on your campaign. David Hammond.
Thank you all so much. I see my old friend Jeff, we go way, way back. Thank you all so much. Tomorrow is a big day. And if you read the article in the paper today about my race, it says that outside interests have spent $31,000. I have $100,000 in direct mail hits against me in my possession. I wish I would have brought them. I would have spread them out for you and shown them. 20 pieces oversized mail. I know my district, I know what a mailer costs. I don't know how they're hiding it. And by the way, that doesn't include radio, it doesn't include digital. My estimation is they're going to spend $400,000 in the primary on my race. So there are people from out of state, a lot of people like Bloomberg and others who want to control our school system, and I'm not going to let it happen. Look, I may lose tomorrow. Tomorrow. I may lose. If I make a runoff, I win, and that's the plan. If I make a runoff, I beat either candidate, there's no doubt. But if I don't make a runoff, it's okay to keep your eyes open, pay attention to it. Text and call everyone you know to go out and vote. Every vote is going to make a difference. My race is locked up 3 ways. It literally could be one of those votes where it's 3 or 4 votes separating the winners and the losers. And I'm going to continue to fight. But I'll tell you what I'm really excited about. I'm excited about tomorrow because whether I win or lose, it doesn't matter. We're going to get our country back. And I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited about that. And I'm actually confident we're going to get both houses. My prediction is 52 in the Senate and 45 in the House, but we'll see how it goes. And if I'm right, y'all can buy me lunch. But we've got to take our country back. And I don't always love John Kennedy's commercials, but his tagline at the end of his commercials, it said the pathway to cheaper fuel prices and lower food prices is in the voting booth. So go vote tomorrow and get all of your friends to go vote tomorrow. Thank you, William.
Very much, David Patton. Thank you for your great service on the school board. You know, normally our camera is run by Kim Powers, who has volunteered for, along with Joey's provost, the last 8 years or 10 years to serve us on these meetings. But Kim is busy campaigning for re-election to her seat on the Central School Board, so she could not join us today. But good luck to Kim, and thank you for your great service. Another candidate, we have a number of good candidates. I hope to hear from several of them today that have been endorsed. But before we hear from Jeff, I have to bring up what is probably the most important race on the ballot here locally, and that is for the First Circuit Court of Appeals. This judgeship is so important because there's a lot of problems in the 19th Judicial District. We have a real division in judicial philosophy, and some of our judges take a very liberal approach, and it's hurting us. In those cases, many of them go to the First Circuit Court of Appeals, where we need real conservatives on the bench, and we have a great candidate. He's a proven candidate, proven in the legislature, proven on the bench, and that is Judge Hunter Green. Judge, will you come up and take?
Okay, I'm not going to take 7 minutes. Thank you very much. I echo what David said. I think the House and the Senate are going to go back Republican. I've been Republican all my life. 1984 was the first time I voted, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan luncheon right here. I don't know if I'm going to have a runoff or not. I'm praying that I won't, but we have 3 candidates, 1 Democrat and 1 other Republican. I am the endorsed Republican candidate. I'm conservative, I'm pro-life. I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm a Christian, and those are the values that drive me every day. That's how my wife and I raised our children, and that's what we need on the Court of Appeal. I've been a judge for 8 years, a lawyer for 28 years, married 31 years, and I need your vote. I need your prayers. I need your vote tomorrow. Like David said, call, text anyone you know that can make the difference. I started, I was a CPA, so I started thinking numbers, getting ahead of myself. And I guess there is a way. Scott will probably tell me there isn't a way to win it in the primary, but there is a way. If you get out and you talk to people, let them know. There's a lot of people that don't know. They don't get fired up about the judge race. Okay? They get fired up about a mayor, a president, maybe a chief of police, Congress. They do not get fired up about a judge race, and you need to be. It's a 10-year term. I served in the House 3 terms, 10 years, okay? 2.5 terms, but still 10 years. That is a lifetime. That is a long time to be on the court without facing any voters. And so I am asking for you to talk to people, and I'm asking for your vote, and I need your vote. And thank you very much, and thank you, Woody.
You know, we still have a little time before we get to Jeff, so I want you to name a couple more candidates before we do. And then we're gonna put the spotlight on Zachary for a minute, because we have so many important races and great races. But somebody who's become a real favorite of, I think, of our Ronald Reagan luncheon, she's been a regular, and that's Jennifer Boyd, who's running for a key seat on the Zachary City Council. Jennifer, come up and say a word if you would. Jennifer Boyd.
Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. I see so many familiar faces. I was just telling Metro Councilman Noel, I said, gosh, I remember when I walked in for the first time and I didn't know a soul, and everyone was so nice and welcoming, and I feel like I've just got a whole new group of friends. So I plan on not being a stranger no matter what happens. But I'm Jennifer Boyd. I am running for a really important race in the city of Zachary, District 5. The only Republican in, and so grateful to have received an endorsement to do so by you all. And I'm flabbergasted. I started this prayer process about 18 months ago for this seat, and it turned out to be a whole different race than I had ever imagined. And I have my two boys. Alex is almost 21, Andon is almost 18, and I have loved every single second getting them involved. It has been so fun. My youngest son, my oldest is in college now, but my youngest is still home. He's a senior in high school, and he's like, Mom, what are we going to talk about when all this is over? He has enjoyed very much talking about the races. He'll be out holding up signs tomorrow. I just can't thank you all enough for the support, wrapping your arms around me through this process. We are at a crucial point in Zachary. We have experienced so much growth. 29% to be exact in the last 10 years, and we need people in our council, sitting in our mayor's office and our chief of police office, that is going to make the right decisions and the best decisions for Zachary, using our godly principles, and getting back to our basics with our values and our morals. Because these kids, like I tell my boys, these are the next generation. We've got to keep them plugged in and keep them involved. And I just really appreciate it so much. I've been a community servant of Zachary for the last 21 years, and I hope to be able to continue that in this manner and in this seat. So thank you all so very much.
Jennifer Boyd, running for Zachary City Council, and also a really outstanding gentleman who's running for city judge in Zachary. I've gotten to know him, had a lot of fun getting to know him. L.T. Dupree, just a wonderful person, really interesting, has a love of history, a love of the law, and I think that he's going to be a great city judge. L.T. Dupree.
Thank you. Once again, I'm L.T. Dupree. I'm running for Zachary City Court Judge. I want to thank, I'm sorry for my dress. Metro Councilman Noel called me about 35 minutes ago and said, are you going to the Ronald Reagan luncheon? I said, I would have if I'd known about it. He said, well, you can still make it. Okay, well, let's do that. I was fixing signs in Zachary. Apparently, I know exactly how long it takes a zip tie to dry rot, because all of my signs are now coming off.
Oh my goodness.
Nonetheless, big day tomorrow, huge day. I want to thank the committee for the nomination. I did receive it over another applicant who is a Republican. I have two opponents. One is a Republican, one is a Democrat. With all three of us are white males. It's not a position that holds the importance in terms of public policy as say a First Circuit Court of Appeals judge or a congressman or a senator. Nonetheless, for the city of Zachary, it is vital. The city court judge in Zachary does more than enforce traffic tickets and small claims. He is a community leader. He meets with other community leaders. He sets the tone in our schools because he has direct communications with the school boards and the administrators. He can be a resource for the community. He can be a leader and a guide for the future of the community. And I would love to be that person for the city of Zachary. So please, if you know some folks in Zachary, reach out. Make sure they voted. make sure they go out there and vote for the people you see here today. They know who has the endorsement of the party, and if it matters to them, then make sure to get out there and vote. Thank you so much.
And you know, we're going to hear after Jeff, we're going to hear from one of my favorite people in the world, named Jeannie Spell, who's running for the school board in Central, and from Steve Myers, another favorite person running for district judge. Are there any other Republican endorsed candidates here other than those?
Is it Jill Dodds?
Yeah, but she's not here.
She's not here.
And by the way, in the Central City News, you'll see the election guide, and these are the candidates who have been endorsed by the Republican Party. And if you go on Facebook, there's an image that they pay, you can take and share that. I think would be very useful and helpful for the candidates. There's a lot of people who don't know who they are. So that brings us to our main speaker right now, somebody that I have known and worked with many years. It's hard to describe him. We can say, you know, that he is a television commentator, a newspaper and digital columnist. He's a radio talk show host with a tremendous audience in the New Orleans area. But above all, he's a patriot who uses his talents to try to save our country, basically, and continue this heritage of freedom that we've had for another generation into the future. He works tirelessly. He keeps a tremendous schedule. He's in the know. And when I wanted to think about who could we bring in that could talk about these elections tomorrow at the national level and to some degree at the state level, who would be the best person that would be available to us? And I immediately thought about Jeff Cruier. Jeff is just a world of knowledge, and he's going to share some of that. And after he talks for maybe about 20 or so minutes, we're going to open it up for questions. So Jeff, welcome. Thanks for coming up from New Orleans.
Hello, everyone. You know, it's a treat to be here. I am in the presence of my favorite Louisiana conservative, Woody Jenkins. Also, my favorite Louisiana legislator, Kathy Edmondson, is here. Woo! My favorite new organization that is working hard for Louisiana, Chris Alexander of the CAG, that's the Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, and he's in the back there. It's an honor being here. So I want to start with something positive. So psychologists all agree that you should start each day with a positive outlook, right? So here's one way to make that happen. So you open up a new file on your computer, and you name it Joe Biden. You send it to the recycle bin. You empty the recycle bin. Your PC will then ask you, do you really want to get rid of Joe Biden? You firmly click yes. And then you feel better. And then you do the next day with Nancy Pelosi. Then we'll go from there. How about Kamala Harris? Now, I thought it was funny. One of my listeners asked me this, and I wanted to share it with you all. She said, Jeff, how many Democrats does it take to fix a problem? And I said, no one knows, it's never happened. And my God, I think we can see that today with what is going on. And finally, this one I wanted to share with you all, again from one of my viewers. And it's a pleasure because I do a TV show and we have folks all over the country who have become viewers and friends. And I thought this was good and shared this with me. I want to share it with you. So, Donald Trump raised the bar. Do we all agree with that? Donald Trump raised the bar. Kamala Harris failed the bar. AOC worked at a bar. Right. Nancy Pelosi lives at a bar. Joe Biden can't spell the bar. And of course Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And maybe one of these days. So tomorrow's a big day, and You know, I've had a countdown clock on my website for literally months, counting down the days to this, and we are here. I think it's the most consequential midterm election since 1862. I think the turnout is going to be strong. I think the interest is strong. You know, normally a midterm election is something that is sort of sleepy. You don't have a lot of participation, a lot of coverage. This is different. It feels different. And I want to bring back memories of two other midterm elections and compare this one with that one. After the first 2 years of Bill Clinton, I'm sure you remember what happened in 1994. We had a revolution. We had Newt Gingrich become Speaker. We had 54 seats that were won by the Republican Party. First time the Republicans have taken control of the Congress in 40 years. Fast forward 16 years after the first 2 years of Barack Obama. I was involved in starting the North Shore Tea Party, which was one of the biggest in the Gulf South. We had 10,000 people in our events over the span of a few years. And in 2010, 63 seats switched, and you had Republicans ushered in a lot of Tea Party Republicans. Again, a massive realignment. Then we have today, after 2 years of the guy I call creepy, sleepy Uncle Joe Beijing Biden, a guy who ran on a platform of unity and moderation. Remember, he was the moderate compared to Bernie Sanders. He was going to unify compared to that divider, Donald Trump. He has gotten in there, and in my opinion, and I'm a student of history, student of politics, studied American presidential history, I rank him as the worst president in United States history, because of the damage that has been done that is almost impossible to even articulate the amount of damage that has been done. He makes Bill Clinton and Barack Obama look like success stories, look like conservatives. So because of that, I think there's going to be another wave. Some are calling it a tsunami. I interviewed today on my radio program Steve Scalise, who predicted 52 senators, a little more conservative than David, 28 House members. I think it's going to be bigger than that. I think the Republicans will have 53 senators when it's all over, and I think they'll have maybe 39, if not more, seats that they will take over in the House. The reason it's not even going to be bigger is because the Republicans are almost there as it is. I mean, we almost have a majority now. And there are not as many seats like we had in the past to switch over, because we have just a few votes away from a majority now. I think it's going to be a big night in a lot of blue states. Look at where Joe Biden is spending time. He is spending time in blue states. He's spending time in places like New York. He's spending time in places like California. And the disaster that is Joe Biden is continuing, because the other day he said he wanted to shut down all coal plants. And just yesterday he said he wanted to end all drilling. All drilling. So that really should hit us hard here in Louisiana because of the importance of oil and gas to Louisiana. Joe Manchin, who's the senator that gave us the Inflation Reduction Act and has given us a lot of this bad Biden agenda, but he is infuriated with what he said about coal plants. And he says that Joe Biden tailors his speech to whatever audience he's in front of. And Joe Manchin is right. So Go back, if you could, to January of 2021. Our country had $2 gallon gasoline. Our country had a 1.4% inflation rate. Our country had low interest rates. We had economic growth after coming back from the pandemic. Today, we got 8.2% inflation. So he's quadrupled, more than quadrupled the inflation rate. Interest rates, I don't know how many of you all are following this, but I have a mortgage, I'm sure many of you do too. It is through the roof. I mean, they keep raising interest rates. That impacts every American that's got credit card debt as well. And more Americans have to use their credit card because guess what? Their paychecks are not keeping up with inflation. Also, of course, gasoline prices, average across the country is $3.76 a gallon. We're lower here, but in many cases, in many places across the country, it's higher. So that's well higher than it was when Biden became president. And of course, we have a recession. Now, the technical definition of recession is 2 quarters in a row of negative economic growth, which we had in the first 2 quarters of the year. Now, the Biden administration came out and said that's not the definition. So they've changed the definition of recession. That's not a recession. We're not in a recession. In fact, Joe Biden said the other day that the economy is strong as hell. He said, so forget your pocketbook, forget your bank account, forget what's happening to you at your job, forget what's happening at the grocery, at the pump. The economy's strong as hell. And we're doing better than all these other countries, which is not true. Inflation is lower in many other countries than our country. He says it's a worldwide problem. So he is not connected to reality. The man is living in an alternate universe. Okay? He's mentally incompetent. And I'm a psychology major. I can tell you he's mentally incompetent. Okay? He needs to be tested. And that should be really something that is pushed forward because I think he has dementia. I saw an interview with Dr. Ben Carson, who's a neurosurgeon. Dr. Ben Carson says he is. Take Dr. Ben Carson's word, not mine. The man should not have his finger on the nuclear button. Should not be commander-in-chief of our military. Should not be running anything. He should be, getting care at a rest home. As should this Senate candidate, John Fetterman.
Yeah.
I mean, Barack Obama probably said, what in the world am I doing on stage with Joe Biden and John Fetterman the other day? And he was having to carry those two across. And poor Fetterman, again, is not capable of being a senator. The man suffering from a stroke. He can't articulate. If you all saw that debate with Dr. Oz, that was maybe one of the most hard to watch performances I've ever seen. I mean, he had difficulty. He started out by saying good night to everyone. I mean, that was like the first word he said, good night. So, and it was downhill from there. So I do think because of all these problems, and let's just talk about a few of them quickly. We were energy independent under Donald Trump. We're energy dependent now. Okay? Crime is through the roof. I'm from New Orleans. We're the murder capital of the nation. I drove down St. Charles Avenue yesterday. It's like a shanty town. This is St. Charles Avenue. Passed underneath the expressway, probably 4 or 5 dozen tents, people living there, panhandling, no police around, because we need 1,600 police officers, we got about 900. So we got barely over half the number of police that we need in New Orleans. So we can't handle the homeless, we can't handle panhandlers, we can barely handle murders. The average response time is 2 hours. So it is not just in New Orleans, though. Go to any Democrat-run city in the country. I came back from Houston. came back here in Baton Rouge, Shreveport. You look at, by the way, the most violent cities in the nation. Wallet Hub did a survey, and actually Baton Rouge is listed below New Orleans. So you're the 178th safest city out of 182 cities in the country. New Orleans is like 167, and Shreveport is like 157. So we have 3 of them in the bottom half of the most dangerous cities in the country. So, crime is a big issue, obviously. New York, I think it's going to lead to a Republican getting elected governor. Because the Democrat, and that would be a wonderful thing, because the Democrat, Kathy Hochul, said in a debate with Lee Zeldin, I don't know why you're making this a big issue. The man had an assassination attempt. Did you see the guy with a knife came up and tried to kill him? And then he had a shootout in his front lawn. So I think it's a big issue, not only to him, but to everybody in New York. Have you seen the video? People getting shoved into the subway tracks? And it is out of control there. Philadelphia, as I said, I came back from Dallas. It's bad in Dallas. It's all over. Democrat-run cities equal destruction of the economy and of public safety. So crime is number 2. And in my opinion, the other top problem is immigration. Because, again, he inherited a secure border. Donald Trump was building the wall. Now remember what Donald Trump had to go through to get the wall built. He had to grab money from here, take it from the defense budget. Congress wouldn't authorize it. He got it started. It was almost done. He got rid of the catch and release policy. He started the Remain in Mexico policy. We were seeing a massive reduction in illegal immigration. Fast forward 2 years, 5 million illegals have now entered the country. 1 million of them are what they call gotaways. So the gotaways are people that haven't been processed by Border Patrol. We don't know how many of them are terrorists. We don't know how many of them are criminals. We don't know how many are threats to this country. They got away. So they got away. And they're in there somewhere, in communities like ours. And then, of course, you've got the economic problems, the health problems, the cultural problems, the educational problems, all compounded by having this invasion. So that is a big issue. And then when you look at what's going on in education, I had somebody on my program today from St. Tammany Parish. You would think, boy, that's a conservative parish, right? Well, they've got pornographic books in their parish library that are accessible to children. They're in the guise of cartoons, but they're showing sex acts and talking about gender identity, sexual orientation in the library. And this is going on in St. Tammany. And of course, we've had a big controversy about what was happening in Livingston. So that's another major issue where I think people are disgusted with the direction of where we're going. Economy, crime, immigration, education. And I think the American people are fired up. Congressman Scalise was telling me that he's seen great enthusiasm, and I have too. I don't see it among the Democrats. I see the Democrats scared. And they are worried that they're going to lose their power. They're worried that they're not going to continue to be able to push this agenda down our throat. We didn't vote for any of this. They just pushed it down our throat. And the results have been literally horrific. But, you know, when they should be talking about crime, education, immigration, and the economy, they're talking about January 6th, Donald Trump is bad, abortion, and the issue of political violence. So they're trying to tell the American people that if the Republicans are elected, women's health is going to be in danger. If Republicans are elected, political violence will increase. You'll be putting election deniers in office, insurrectionists. James Clyburn, who's the number 3 Democrat, he is the guy responsible for Joe Biden being president. Because James Clyburn delivered South Carolina for Joe Biden. Joe Biden was losing. All of a sudden, James Clyburn came to the rescue, gave him South Carolina. Joe Biden took off after that. So James Clyburn said, you nominated an African-American woman to the Supreme Court. You've got my support. So he nominated an African-American woman who then got up there and testified that she didn't know what a woman was. Remember, she's not a biologist. That's our Supreme Court memo. So James Clyburn said on TV that we're on the verge of what happened in 1933. That he's worried about Nazism taking over. So he's comparing Republicans, conservatives, to Nazis. That's how delusional these folks are and how far they're going to go to scare people into keeping their majority. He also said that the world's going to end if the Democrats lose. The world is going to end. So this whole hyperbole just seems to have no limits with the Democrats. And that's what they've got. They're not talking about people's problems. They're not offering solutions, as I pointed out earlier. They don't offer solutions. And it's just fear. It's fear of the Republicans, demonization of the Republicans, and they're hoping that's going to work. Here in Louisiana, all of our incumbents should win re-election handily. We'll have this election, and then the big sweepstakes is going to be in 2023, right? How are we going to move Louisiana off of the bottom of every list? And the election in 2023 is the most important statewide election I think we've had. We desperately need a new governor. We desperately need a legislature that will work with this governor and move Louisiana forward. We need new statewide elected officials in many cases, not all. So that's going to have to be our focus after this midterm election is done tomorrow, because the race has already begun. Jeff Landry, as you may know, got the endorsement of the state party, got the endorsement of Eddie Risponi and Ralph Abraham. He's got a big leg up now in the race. I think Billy Nungesser and John Schroeder are still thinking about it, and Garrett Graves and Bill Cassidy. Now I'll tell you one thing. If Bill Cassidy runs, I'm going to work day and night to defeat him. Bill Cassidy is nothing more than a Democrat. Okay? Bill Cassidy came on my program in 2020, and he said over and over and over again, I support Donald Trump. I am a Donald Trump Republican. He gets elected after running commercials of only himself and Donald Trump. His campaign was Donald Trump. And then he gets elected, and he votes to convict Donald Trump on the most ridiculous impeachment charges I've ever seen. Because Donald Trump got up at a speech and said patriotically, make your voices heard, and peacefully make your voices heard. He didn't call for any kind of violence, but Bill Cassidy made that vote to convict Donald Trump, one of 7 senators to do that, 10 members of the House. He should be opposed by any good Republican out there. He's going to try to, if he does run, my prediction is he'll try to be the de facto Democrat candidate. And he'll try to run as a sensible Republican that gets all the Democrat votes. And that could be his ticket. And we'll see. But I'm going to work day and night against him. In fact, I've got a petition on my website calling for his immediate resignation, actually. Because he sold us a bill of goods. He was elected on a pro-Trump platform. He gets up there and is one of the very few to vote to convict Donald Trump. By the way, Donald Trump was impeached 2 times over making a perfect phone call to Ukraine, asking about legitimate questions about Ukrainian Biden corruption, and making a speech on January 6th where he said, peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. If Republicans take over the Congress, I would love to see them pursue impeachment charges against Joe Biden.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Because I've already outlined 6 reasons that Joe Biden should be impeached. The border, allowing an invasion from the border, obviously the Ukrainian corruption that he's involved in, his corruption involving his son Hunter. Remember, he's the big guy that got 10% of what Hunter brought in, and he lied about it. He's also dipped into our strategic petroleum reserve and put us all at risk because of a political emergency, not a national emergency, a political emergency. He gave us the biggest foreign policy debacle in U.S. history, the Afghanistan withdrawal, where 13 of our best and brightest were killed. And then, number 6, he allowed in 79,000 Afghan nationals, and these people were not vetted. So we don't know how many of these 79,000 are threats to our country. So I asked Eric Graves on my program, are you ready to impeach Joe Biden? Because I'm ready to support you. You know what he said? I haven't seen anything impeachable that Joe Biden has done.
Oh my God.
He told me that on my radio show. I haven't seen anything impeachable Joe Biden's done. I then sent this list of 6 things to his staff. I said, well, I'm going to send you some reasons why he should be impeached. So I sent him these 6 reasons, and then I never heard back from him.
Wow.
So he's thinking about running for governor. He is, a good guy. I like him. But there's no doubt in my mind Joe Biden should be impeached. If Donald Trump is impeached twice, don't you think Joe Biden has met the bar for impeachment in a much more serious way than anything Donald Trump ever did? And finally, I wrote my last column about what I see as the 2024 race. And to me, Donald Trump is going to announce on November the 14th that he is running. And polls show that he is way ahead in the Republican nomination race. And I just think the more the Biden administration goes on, the better Donald Trump looks. Just imagine, folks, what he accomplished with everything arrayed against him, every possible obstacle, and he, in my opinion, did a fabulous job in fighting off impeachment, harassment, abuse, investigations. It really started the day he announced. The day he came down the escalator, they've targeted him, and they've never stopped. And they're still targeting him. And they'll always target him, because he's a threat to them, because he represents America first, and they do not want that agenda being implemented. That is a threat to their agenda. So, finally, I just wanted to announce I've got a new podcast that I started called Well Stated, and it's about Louisiana issues, and I'd love for you guys to subscribe to it. It is just was launched this week, and Chris Alexander's been one of my guests. Woody Jenkins has been a guest, and the link is going to be on my website, which is my last name, trueair.net. So I'd love you guys to subscribe. Thank you very much. If y'all have any questions or comments, love to hear from you. Yes, sir.
So after we take over tomorrow evening, the lame duck session that the Democrats are going to put, what do you think are the odds of issues they're going to push in their lame duck?
Well, I hear they're going to try to push $50 billion more toward Ukraine, and my view of that is my heart goes out to Ukraine, but we're 31 trillion in debt. Our border is open. Our people are suffering. Our economy is in shambles. We don't have $130 billion to send to Ukraine. And why are we always footing the bill for NATO and what these European countries should be doing? Ukraine is right next to Europe. Europe should be doing all this, not us. We got to worry about our invasion that's going on. We've got an invasion. And I think it's sad that we've got a president who seems to be cavalierly talking about nuclear war. I mean, nuclear Armageddon. And, I mean, I don't really have any confidence with this guy in charge of our military. I mean, one of my guests that I have on regularly is a military expert. Recruitment is down. People don't want to serve in the military under Joe Biden. They're kicking out all the people that didn't vaccinate. They're making everything woke and politically correct. And it's not the meritocracy that we all, I think, thought the military always was. We always held the military in high regard. But now people are not serving. So they're in the process of trying to destroy the military.
The last thing.
Yes, sir.
We take over January 3rd, we'll elect Trump to be the Speaker of the House. And he'll have to take the gavel from Nancy, and Nancy will drop dead of a heart attack.
By the way, if you all believe that story about Paul Pelosi, you know, please. I mean, that whole thing is a fiction. But yeah, I don't think, you know, I wrote a column a few years ago saying that I think Trump should be Speaker of the House because I thought that was a great idea. And I hear he thought about it but didn't want to do it. So it looks like we'll have Kevin McCarthy. And my worry is Mitch McConnell being Senate Majority Leader because I think he is he's terrible. Anybody that'll fund Lisa Murkowski and not fund Blake Masters is a problem. Yeah, but
Yeah, but you go through some of the specific races and tell us in the Senate your predictions.
right. Well, we'll start in Arizona. I think our Republican will win there, Blake Masters. In Nevada, Adam Laxalt, I think, has a good shot, although I still think he is probably a little bit of an underdog. I think we'll win the North Carolina race. I think in New Hampshire, that's my upset prediction. General Bolduc, I think, is going to win there. I am still worried about Pennsylvania. It should be a blowout, but there's a lot of shenanigans with the vote in Pennsylvania. And I'm worried about Pennsylvania. I really am. I think Ohio is going to be a blowout for the Republicans. I think J.D. Vance has turned out to be one of our really good candidates. Obviously, I think Florida, Marco Rubio is going to win. As far as governor's races, I think we're in good shape. I think Kerry Lake's going to win overwhelmingly. I think Ron DeSantis is going to win overwhelmingly. So I think we'll gain some governorships. I think we're going to gain in the Senate. And I'm feeling good about it. My only worry is shenanigans. Shenanigans that they could pull, because they've already said we're not going to know the results election night. So, do you remember back in the day, before all these computers and electronic voting machines, we used to get elections that night. How did they do it then, and they can't do it now? So, that's my only concern. I mean, I think we have the sentiment with us, we have the issues. Their candidates are terrible. They've got some of the worst candidates. This governor of New York is terrible. The woman who's running for governor of Arizona is like a valley girl, okay? I mean, she's like an airhead. She's got nothing. And then Kerry Lake is sharp, articulate, principled. So we've got good candidates. They have horrible candidates. I can't think of one who I think is really an impressive Democrat running for office. I really can't. Yeah.
I guess in line with that, you know, the party is wanting to go close primaries on this, but Every other state has closed primaries, and they seem to get terrible candidates, and we seem to get terrible candidates even with open primaries. So what do you think? One, do you think there's a chance we could go to closed primaries, and is it a good idea?
I've always been in favor of that, Scott, because I think it's a good way to build a party. As you know, there are 1.2 million Democrats registered in the state, 1 million Republicans, I'm using approximate numbers, 800,000 independents, so that's our 3 million voters. There's still more Democrats registered here in Louisiana. They don't have one statewide elected position except governor. They've only got one congressman. They've got no other statewide offices. Our 2 senators are Republican. I mean, the party is dead in the water, but they've got more of them registered than us. So I think it would build membership in the party. I would like to see us go to party primaries. You fight it out in the party primary. You then endorse whoever wins. You get behind that candidate. In the past, we've had all this division. And it hurt Eddie Rispone, 4 years ago. I think it really did. Yes, sir.
Republican State Committee, Executive Committee, they voted to endorse Jeff Landry. What's your opinion on that? Just early. And by the way, I know about that. My brother was thought of that.
Your brother thought of that?
My brother, Eddie, was former. But
Eddie
what
was
do you think about it?
Well, Eddie's behind him, as you know, Jeff Landry. And I know that this is a way to try to get everybody behind Jeff Landry. I worry that it might backfire on them. That people might think, well, this is too much. We're going to let the voters decide, not these executive committee members. So I'm interviewing Jeff Landry on Wednesday. I really like him. But I also like John Schroeder, and I like Billy Nungesser, and I like Garrett Graves, although I don't like what he said about impeachment. And, I don't like Bill Cassidy.
What about the timing, though? That's what I was saying. A lot of people think that time too early, but these other people drag their feet.
Right.
I didn't know the same thing, but Abraham agreed with it.
Yeah, it's going to probably encourage some of these people not to run. It'll encourage some of them not to run. I still think he's going to have opposition. He's not going to be the only Republican candidate. There will be other Republican candidates. But I just think it's early. I think it's early. And I'd like to see who's in the race, more of the campaign. Although I really like Jeff Landry. I just think it could be viewed as sort of an insider deal, So that's what I worry about. Hey, Woody.
Yeah, let me take up for Garrett Graves just a minute. Because he is our congressman, he does a great job. We do support him. And I think that when it comes to an actual vote on impeachment, I have no doubt that happens. So don't you think that maybe it's the kind of thing he would want to consult with his caucus and have a united front and not just be the only guy out there one of the few?
Yeah, you might be right. And I hope he would see the light after all the evidence is presented. And there is a school of thought that Republicans shouldn't go down that road. That, that's what the Democrats do, we shouldn't do it. But my advice to Republicans has always been, stop playing by these rules of etiquette, and let the Democrats run roughshod over you. Stop playing, stop playing wiffle ball while they're playing hardball. They seem to be very reluctant to do to the Democrats what the Democrats do to us. And I think that has not helped us. That's why Donald Trump is so different. He gives them as good as he gets. He's a counterpuncher. He fights back. So I would hope, and I like Garrett Graves, I would hope Garrett Graves would come around and support it. I think, Woody, it might not even come up. It might. I don't think Kevin McCarthy is in favor of it. So even though I like it, I think it's a great idea. I don't think Kevin McCarthy will push it, and I don't think it's even going to be a vote. So that's my prediction.
Don't you think it might be the fact that the VP would be the next one coming up? We'd have to get rid of her too.
Well, I understand. She's a disaster. She's a disaster. She is the word salad queen. Okay, she says a whole lot of nothing. But I just personally think there's got to be some accountability if a man has broken the law. I believe he's broken the law. So I don't think you just let that go because you don't want Kamala Harris. But once you get her, I mean, she's also, I think, potentially done impeachable acts as well. So has Alejandro Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, who said the border is closed. So has Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, who sits the FBI on pro-life activists and sends the FBI to interrogate and incarcerate January 6th protesters who were in the Capitol with a Bible and a flag and didn't have a weapon and didn't hurt anybody, but they're in jail. You know, I interviewed a guy in jail, a January 6th protester, who is not going to have a trial for 2 years, from January 2021 to January 2023 is his trial. He did not have a weapon. He did not commit any acts of violence. He saved the lives of some other people. And he's one of like 900 that have been arrested. So I think Merrick Garland has done a terrible job as Attorney General.
Well, remember, if it weren't for Mitch McConnell, he'd be on the Supreme Court.
Yep.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's the one thing Mitch McConnell, I have to give him credit for, because he also got a lot of Trump judges through. So that's true. But I think Merrick Garland should be impeached as well. Yeah, Mike.
About the elections in Washington State, and I was under New Mexico and Michigan.
Well, I happen to know Tudor Dixon. She was on the network that I'm on, and I think Gretchen Whitmer has maybe been the worst governor in the country. So I am cautiously optimistic about Tudor Dixon. I think that could be a big surprise. I'm hearing good things about both the state of Washington and the state of New Mexico. There's a good candidate that I've been following running for Congress that I hope is going to win, a guy named Joe Kent. So I think those might happen, Mike. I think if we get a tsunami, I think we'll pull across the finish line some people that might ordinarily not win. But I think Michigan would be considered, because the polls show Whitmer still a few points ahead. I think that would be considered a big surprise. But I like Tudor Dixon. I think she's a principled conservative. And Whitmer was a disaster. I don't see how anybody in Michigan, after going through what she did to people during COVID, could possibly vote for her, even consider voting for her. But she's ahead in the polls. I mean, it's really, it shows you the power of incumbency. That's the only I can say. Oregon, I mean, I think that would be, that's Patty Murray. That's Washington, okay. So, I haven't been following that, so I don't know. But as far as Patty Murray goes, from what I understand, she might be toast. Yeah, and she's a real radical. So, I don't know. I'm hopeful. Again, I think if we have a tsunami, if we have a wave, if we have a big victory, some of these blue states could have some good winners. Yes, yes.
Yes, this way, okay.
Yes, sir.
Can you weigh in on a couple of other gubernatorial candidates that have been mentioned, specifically State Representative Richard Nelson and also State Senator Sharon Hewitt?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I like all these people. I lived in Mandeville for a long time, and that young man came to my door and said he was running for state representative. And I mean, I thought he was in high school. I mean, he is he's like 33. I mean, but he's a bright guy. He's a good conservative, and he seems to want to do it. He had a fundraiser the other day. So, he's a long shot. Sharon Hewitt, I think, is also a long shot, but she said to somebody who recently talked to her that she's running. So, again, she would be the only woman in the race, from what I understand, and I know that she would have a hard time winning re-election to that Senate seat on the North Shore, because she was pushing that casino. They voted down that casino by like a 65-35 margin. And I know Scott knows a lot about that. And that, I think, has made Sharon Hewitt think, well, I'm not going to run for re-election to the state Senate I'll just run for governor. But again, you know, the money situation for these guys like Representative Nelson and Senator Hewitt is going to be difficult when you've got, you know, Donald Trump endorsing Jeff Landry, and you're going to have, you know, some of these big players that I think are out so early. So they're real long shots. Yes.
Well, then I'll have a follow-up. How susceptible do you believe that Jeff Landry will be to negative attack ads once he would be in a runoff, specifically things like the sexual harassment environment that existed in the Attorney General's office, the employment of the Mexican welders versus, you know, for the Cameron LCG projects versus, you know, local welders, the Freeport-McMoran controversy of the blueprint for that settlement, and there are a couple other things I could itemize, but it's been my belief that Jeff Landry may be the single most easily targetable negative attack ads of any candidate that's been mentioned so far. Do you concur? Do you think?
I think you're right. I think he would be attacked tremendously. Yeah, you're right. But on the other hand, a lot of people admire what he did in fighting back against the Biden administration time and time again. So, you know, there have been a few attorney generals that have fought back. You have Eric Schmidt, who was on the verge of getting elected senator in Missouri. And then you have Jeff Landry. And a lot of times it was Schmidt and Landry going after the Biden administration time and time again. So I understand you're right. I mean, there'll be a lot of controversies that'll come up. But I think a lot of people will support him. And then if he's got Trump on his side, that's going to help him. So he is obviously formidable. Very formidable. But you're right, he could be, there's going to be a lot of money that will be thrown against him, no doubt about it. So that's why Nungesser is thinking about it, because there could be an opening for a more moderate Republican that would then be able to get a lot of Democrat votes. And if you're in a runoff with Jeff Landry and you're Nungesser, you're the favorite. I think. My worry would be that person in the runoff against Landry would be Bill Cassidy. And that would be, in my opinion, a disaster. Because I do not want to see Bill Cassidy elected governor. Yes, sir.
If Cassidy runs for governor, do you think Congressman Graves is eyeing that seat, potentially?
That's a great idea. I mean, that's a great idea. That could be a natural for him.
Because he's running like he's got a race, and he
I know.
kind of doesn't.
I mean, I could tell that from my interview with him. I mean, I could tell. And he is articulate. He's got a lot of credentials that he can count on. I mean, he's got a great career. I think he's done well. It's highly regarded. So, yeah, I mean, I think it could be an option for him. I had always heard that Kennedy might run for governor, get elected governor, and then appoint Landry to replace him in the United States Senate. But it looks like Kennedy's going to stay because if Republicans take over the Senate, Kennedy is going to be really one of the power brokers. And hopefully Cassidy not so much, because I can consider Cassidy in the same category as Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski. You know, I consider them, you know, I don't even consider them Republicans. I want to see us to have more of a Republican majority so we can pass things, you know, in spite of them. So, anyway, that's just, I mean, you know, there might be some Bill Cassidy fans, I'm sorry, but I mean, when he voted to convict Donald Trump, I think he angered a lot of people, a lot of conservatives.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Great job, Jeff Crouer, as always. Such tremendous insight. Thank you so much for coming, Jeff, and great analysis. I'll just throw in a couple of other things, some of my comments and predictions. Watch for John Kennedy. Watch for John Kennedy after tomorrow. I think there's a very good chance that he will be the next Senate Majority Leader.
That would be amazing.
So let's see. There's a lot of dissatisfaction in the Senate with Mitch McConnell. But of course, conspiracies have to be very quiet. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the majority of the Senate, depending on the outcome of some of these races, if they start looking elsewhere And Kennedy would be such a great choice, I think. Louisiana is likely to be very important in this next Congress, with Steve Scalise maybe being the majority leader. Higgins moving up, Garrett Graves moving up. There's just so many possibilities. Ms. Letlow being on appropriations. There's just a lot of good things happening. Now, a comment on Jeff Landry that I want to say. I think there is, some concern about the endorsement and the way it was handled. But I will say this, as I looked at what was going on in the pandemic, which was the greatest threat to our liberty in our lifetime,
Yes.
that there was one person at the state level who stood, and he stood often alone. He took all the heat from the news media, social media, his own party in some cases, but he stood unswervingly against the mandates, the tyranny, even striking out against social media and trying to have a liberty there. So for someone like me, it would be very difficult when he's running against people who were silent. Who were silent. Just silent during all of that. How can you be silent when your religious liberties, your freedom of speech, your right to travel, your right to do business were under attack? And will he have negative attacks? Absolutely. Just like Trump. How could Trump ever be elected president if you look at it on paper before the election? So I don't know where the governor's race is going, but I think that Jeff Landry is in a pretty strong position right now with the city who can take him on. We have a couple of other candidates I think it'd be great to hear from because they are outstanding. One of them is Jeannie Spell, who is running for the school board in the city of Central. She is such a wonderful person, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. She's been a teacher. She's taught math. She's taught American history in Christian schools. She's been a very successful career in real estate, where she sold over $40 million in real estate. And she's been a pastor's wife. She's done many things, but I'll tell you more than anything, she's just a great person. And she's running for the school board, the kind of person we've been trying to get Republicans to run for the school board this year, and she is one of the best examples of that coming to reality. So, Jeannie, would you come say a few words? Jeannie and she knows what it's all about to stand up to tyranny, too.
Thank you very much for asking me to do this today. My least favorite thing in the world to do. So anyway, I'm grateful to be here. Tomorrow is a big day and I'm very excited about it. I wish all of you the very best, and I think we're going to do awesome. All the wonderful comments. I will never, ever tailor my speech to fit any audience. I'm a rebel, but only in a positive way. I believe in pro-life and pro-constitution, everything that is about our freedom in America, 1000% behind it. I believe in traditional marriage. You've probably all read about me in the paper. Of course, we all read the Central City News and Baton Rouge papers. So, my thing is, I was raised by a father who was a prisoner of war in Korea. For 37 months, the entire war, his Task Force Smith was the first group sent over to Korea. He was stationed in Japan. And his group was the first group sent over, 500 GIs. And they were fighting off 35 to 40,000 North Koreans. So when they fought them off like all day and that night, and then they were captured the next morning. And it was a really, he spent 37 months in prison, and it's a really long story, a little bit. We read a little bit about it in the newspaper. But the thing about being raised by someone like that from 7 years old, he didn't talk about it, but you just knew later when you were able to, when he was able to speak about it. My son Tony, who's the pastor, was 6 weeks old when Dad finally started telling my little boys, there were 3 and 4 at the time, the story of his capture and release and what happened during that time. Because children are not judgmental. they believe what you tell them. And that's the thing about getting on the school board that kind of has me excited, very excited, because it starts when they're actually in daycare. And whatever they're taught then, they literally, they believe. Children are innocent. So it's so important for us to have the right people in the right places so that they can teach them, so that they can be taught, the truths and the real history of America. And what freedom really means. A lot of what we have right now is just a really hot mess. So I'm very thankful. I think that that teachers should be accountable for what they tell students from, whether it's pre-K or right on up. And I'm not opposed to cameras in the classroom to make that accountability happen. I'm actually for that. And I think in this time, especially right now, that is something that really needs to be looked into. But anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate you letting me say this. I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
And I think the last candidate that we have that has not had a chance to speak today is Steve. Are you here, Steve? Sure. Steve Meyer is running for district judge from the Northern District. He is, I hate to say someone's very articulate and then they get up and speak and maybe they're not. But Steve is a great speaker and he's a great thinker. Boy, it'd be so wonderful to have him on the bench. I think we need him right now, believe me. In the 19th Judicial District, we need Steve Myers on the bench. So Steve, let's see what you got to offer today.
Thank you very much. I will be brief. I wasn't just got up. Yeah, I said one time, some of you have already heard it, that it's kind of like a pinball machine when I start thinking, jumping all over the place. But every time somebody says something, another thought, enters my mind, and you try to put it all together. Last night I was reading my favorite author, G.K. Chesterton, and the chapter was "The Exception Proves the Rule." And it was very interesting because, of course, he wrote 100 years ago, and at that time the world was falling apart, and as it has been for pretty much the beginning, since Eden. And I start thinking, and sometimes people say I think too much, and we know I talk too much, but they say I think too much. And I said, well, the exception proves the rule. One of the points he made is that we're in an age where we don't have any rules. Everybody just seems to do what they want to do without regard for essentially the norms of society. What's normal is what is normal. Abnormal is not just 50% plus one. We're so brainwashed by the political process and just winning. But the purpose of all this government stuff is essentially to have a society that represents natural law, which is essentially the family, have families who can raise their. So the great thing about parents is that I just have a new nephew last night born in Montana, and you got two people who are volunteering now to be the caretaker of this child for their whole life, free help. And you think that's kind of weird, because in many ways you can't get people to do what they're supposed to do because they don't know what they're supposed to do. There was something I saw on the internet the other day about one of the schools that had a switch gender day or something, and everybody was parading around. And it's one thing if you're in a costume party, but anyway, the point is that when it comes to being a judge and why I'm in this race, there was no Republican that was ready to run, and the district is basically 50% minority, 45% white, and 5% other. And I still can't figure out in many ways why I'm the candidate. Don't get me wrong, I think I'll be a very good judge. As Chesterton says, judges don't need to be impartial, they need to be partial to both sides. I love government in some ways, I don't like government in some ways. We need it for its mission and its core purpose. We don't need it when it steps on our natural rights. You know, remember in the 80s, people would snap that rubber band? I reach in my pocket all the time and I realized I still got one of these things. And I was about to throw it away and I said, you know, I don't think I used it very much, but when you have to have that to get into a business that doesn't care whether you wear it or not, you just wonder, has the government stepped outside the realm of what is supposed to really be doing? That being said, you know, what is normal? I mean, 400,000 people didn't get murdered in Baton Rouge last night. So we tend to forget that because the way the media treats things now, the exception is what we hear about. I mean, news is different. I'm a journalism major, and one of the first things they tell you is, you know, dog bites man just isn't news, but man bites dog is news. Now there's so many weird things going on. You know, it's really hard for people, and I think about that little baby and what influences him in the classroom and other places that the parents just can't overcome. And it's even worse now than it was when we were growing up with the media, because they hear this stuff, they see this stuff, and it's fascinating. Nature versus nurture, blank slate versus whatever. Well, when I'm facing a defendant and a prosecutor, you know, the goal is to find the truth. And that's another whole story. So people kind of were surprised when I got in this race, but I look at it as saying this is important because it's local. And we talk about national politics all the time, but the base of the country is the strength of the family and the strength of the communities. Now this is going to sound strange, but I live in South Baton Rouge, you know, can't vote for myself. I don't know anybody can vote for me. I've met plenty of people, but the people actually talk differently. I said, this is kind of what it was like when I grew up. This is like real family. I said, I wonder what land's like in Central. I might be moving out there with Zachary one day. I live right by LSU, and I see these students. It's weird over there. So anyway, be a John kid. Weird. So there are problems that's in here in the court system. I heard Herschel Walker say, you know, one of his issues, no cash bail. But when you get into all these things, what we got to first agree to it as a society is, what are the rules? You can't just say, I don't like that rule, so we're going to break it. And judges basically are to enforce the rule. And of course, we've got one here. So the problem is that some of the rules are getting pretty weird in and of themselves too. So the bottom line is, I'll give you fresh eyes. I'll give you a clean heart, so to speak, in that I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not a defense attorney. The defense attorney yesterday said, well, you know, we think you might be okay. You have a chance to win, we hear. I said, I do have a chance to win. I may win tomorrow, is what I hear. Now, come on. Well, but it depends on one thing. It depends on your health. I have these cards, and this was a late development campaign. I wasn't running for 2 years, deciding to run. But I'm looking for the wave and the ride the wave, so to speak. Only Republican in the race against 3 African-American Democrats, 1 white Republican. The demographics are favorable, not just because of the demographics, but because of the philosophy as well. And it's going to require that people on the local level in their communities realize that this is our judge and we need to help get people to the polls. So take some of these things with you when you talk to people and remind them to vote. They don't need a whole lot of reminders. We're doing some text messaging and all that. But it's not just for me. They're going to, look, we need to be vigilant. Everything I've heard is the reason the country's in the condition it's in is somehow we've lost our vigilance. We've got to be vigilant about our weight and exercise and eating and all, prayer, all of these things. But it's not that hard to vote. And yet, you know, I wonder why isn't it 100% every election? It's discouraging in a way, because then people will complain for the next few years, but they won't go vote. And frankly, you know, I wish all the candidates good luck. And You know, it's gonna be kind of like that movie, you know, after the end of the election, when, what's that movie where the guy wins the election, he says, now what do we do? But I can tell you this, is that they'll see somebody who's watching down there. I will be representing you, not only in the administration of justice there, but as it comes to individual defendants and the process itself. I think you'll be extremely happy with the courtesy and the work that goes into examining each of those cases. So I appreciate your, I don't have to convince you I talk too much now. I appreciate the time, and of course, you know, one of my political heroes from the very beginning, and I appreciate your support.
I think he will have a runoff, but I think he's going to win in December, assuming he gets out and does work. Look, there's two other people I want you to meet, very important. We're going to take just a minute to do that. There are two Evelyns here that you need to know. Yes. The first one is Dr. Evelyn Griffin. She is a physician. She was terminated from her job because she wouldn't take the vaccine, and she's been a leader in the freedom of health care ever since then. Evelyn, Dr. Evelyn Griffin. Tell us just maybe 2 minutes about yourself and what you're doing right now. Dr. Griffin.
Thank you. Small correction, though, I was not terminated because I didn't get vaccinated. It was because I was speaking up against the vaccine and then went to testify at the Capitol against the mandate, at which point my workplace found out, and then I was put on a polite way of being fired and administrative leave. So that's the consequence. I experienced the cancel culture myself. And so I've been just very active in getting the message across about protecting our kids against mandates, and as well as the pro-life movement, and just spreading word that even though Roe versus Wade was reverted, it is back to the states as far as what we do with our pro-life laws. And so we just need to stay vigilant when it comes to that issue. So thank you very much for having me. This is my first time here, and I do feel welcome, like you were saying.
Evelyn, I would like to meet Evelyn Griffin, Evelyn Shilbear. Evelyn, if you would.
Oh.
Evelyn and Paige Lowry's baby. I didn't see you. Evelyn and Paige Lowry. I'm sorry, Emily. I called her Evelyn.
I feel honored to be able to call Evelyn because she's
Emily Shinover. Emily Shinover and Paige Lowry have formed a group called Moms for Liberty. Yes. And it's amazing. So tell us a little bit about it.
I'll be brief because I'm very passionate about this topic, and I could do it for a very long time. But Moms for Liberty is an organization, it's a parental rights organization. There's a national organization, but we are the local chapter of that. So it's Moms for Liberty, East Baton Rouge Parish. And we just want to work with our school board members. We want to work as parents. We want to work with administrators and all just across the board, and just kind of keep that accountability within the school system. We meet once a month in East Baton Rouge Parish, and it's been amazing. Evelyn comes. She's just an example of one of the amazing women that come. We don't just love women. We want men, and we want grandparents, and we want aunts and uncles, because Moms for Liberty really started at the national level a little less than 2 years ago. And ever since the two women that started it were school board members that saw what was going on behind the curtain on the educational level and said we need to do something. Really out of COVID. That's where it started. And I'll just say that within less than 2 years, there's about 100,000 members in 35 states with a little over, I think at this point, a little over 200 chapters. We are the first in Louisiana, and our goal is to get a chapter in every single state. So we're not anti-teachers or anti-school board members or anti-superintendents. We want to make sure that parents have a voice in the room, in the hearings, and bring attention to issues that I think sometimes school board members just don't know because they don't have the time to dig in. We'll dig in as long as you invite us to the table. So that's it.
It's so important to know not only go vote, but to get other people to go vote. That's the biggest thing. We can do it. David Tapman right there done such a great job. Candidates, so there are Republican candidates. Let's go elect them every single one tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Next one.